Hello, hello, welcome everybody. Welcome to the webinar. Go ahead and drop something in the chat. Say hello. Where are you from? What are you hoping to get out of this session today? We have Deb the Great, Dr. Deb the Fixer, Deb Newell. She goes by a lot of names, or maybe I just call her a lot of different things. Hi, Deb.
Hi, how are you doing?
Doing good, thanks. Awesome. We're gonna get started in just a minute or two, just letting everybody get in here. So um, there we go. Boom. Awesome. Cool, cool. Happy, what is it, Tuesday? It's a happy Tuesday for me. Kids are going to school tomorrow.
Oh, happy, joy.
Yes. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. It has been a long summer. Hey, Luis from Mexico City. Hey, nice seeing you, bud. From a management company in Ontario. Excellent. Where y'all from? Where you joining us from? Say hello. Um, Luis is looking to improve communications, free up time for strategic work. I love it. That's something specifically we're going to be talking about today is strategic work. Um, Hello from Austin, Texas. 101 properties. Awesome. Didi or Dedi. Nice to meet you. Great, great. Cool. All right. Well, let's jump in and get started so we can start on time and end on time. Um, so today the topic here is we're talking about the communication trap. As we know, property management is kind of like juggling swords. We have tenants, owners, vendors, compliance, fires that are always popping up. And today we're going to help you not have to feel like you're playing defense against surprise attacks, but have a clear roadmap of how to be proactive and have team members who own the outcome. We are fortunate today to have Dr. Deb with us, Deb Newell, the Fixer. That's exactly what she is. Deb's been in the property management business, owned her own PM company, very intelligent and in-tuned consultant in the industry. Deb, welcome.
Thank you, Jay. It's nice to be here.
Excellent. Yeah, so we're gonna get into some good things. Deb and I have been collaborating on the right content for this so that we can deliver some great content for you guys. So if you don't know me, I'm a consultant in the industry as well. 0 to 350 doors in 2 years, my little claim to fame there, and I like to geek out with AI. So um, so today's goal is that we are going to help you understand the real cost of communication breakdowns. We're going to cover how to create empowered autonomous team members and implement a framework that drives trust, clarity, and scale. Um, so Deb,
Mhm.
what do you think is the main piece to this puzzle here that we want to cover?
Um, well, I think there's an author I like called Patrick Lencioni, and he reminds us that every dysfunction in a team stems from broken trust and fractured communication. So communication is key, as we all know, and when trust is absent, so when you can't trust that something's going to get done, a process or a team member is going to do something, or teams are blindsided, leaders are discovering the problems too late, or people withhold information or feedback, then these decisions, they lack commitment and no one's held accountable to what's actually happening. So I think really the key of it is it starts with communication and probably some trust there, right?
Yeah, yeah, it sounds about right. Communication, trust, accountability. Um, and Deb and I, we work with a ton of property managers, so we're seeing what's happening in your businesses like in real time. Hence, real time consulting. Little Deb Newell plug right
Hmm.
there.
Right. Yeah,
Uh,
I think as well, I would, and just to, sorry to cut you off, but just
yeah,
I would
no, go ahead.
say that you know, in property management, that the cost of these, like all of these things happening is whether it's like turnovers, you guys can lose clients, you have stalled growth. I think what we want to understand is not what the operational cost of those blind spots would be, but how emotionally, like how that affects and affects each of us. And there's like emotional intelligence is really important within leadership and also what we do because it reframes how teams feel empowered and how you feel autonomous to be able to consistently deliver the right outcomes.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so important. Consistently delivering the right outcomes and emotional intelligence is a lot of the skills um, that are required, right, by us in business. Um, we we don't typically have all of those skill sets, right, when we first get into business. Like we didn't get in build a property management company to be an HR manager or to be a therapist, right? It's like we don't to be
Mhm.
a coach, we don't have these skill sets and we have to develop them along the way.
Exactly. And I think on this particular slide, like just like I think this is a perfect example of someone who's always reacting. So instead of like leading the charge of whatever has to happen, right? So we always, and that's very common in property management. We tend to react and want to be proactive in what we're doing, but we end up being reactive to kind of what's going on around us. We essentially, I would diagnose this as a team that lacks clarity and accountability, and without that structure, again, of kind of that trust, everything flows back to the manager or the leader in more of this reactive cycle, right? We're constantly just this hamster on this wheel that we can't get ahead. So I think reactivity just signals poor regulation and what we feel out of control probably in our jobs. We can't always, it's like I can never get ahead. I'm always caught off guard. I'm blindsided by what's going on. Things get escalated or they don't get escalated. So I think that's going to be really important is to figure out how can we regulate that climate that we are working in so that we help it so there's just like there's not always a surprise. There's not always this reaction of what's going on around us.
Yeah, isn't it crazy that you can start with a plan and you plan the week,
Hmm.
right? You block your schedule, you have the meetings, the things that you're committed to, and then you plan your day, right? It's Monday. These are the things that I'm going to do today. And then all of a sudden you get into the office and everything changes. You got people pulling you in one direction, and then you have a fire that's happening. So, you're not sure what to prioritize. You feel overwhelmed. Um, and these things just happen. And, we're going to talk about how to prevent those.
Well, I'm curious. So there's a lot of people on here. If you could, I'm curious to know what some of the roles are of some of these, of some of the people on here. Are you assistants, assistant property managers, maintenance coordinators? Are you property managers? I think it would be really important to understand how we as employees of a company can help drive and also eliminate some of these stressors that some of the leaders feel, whether you're manager or the owner of the company. How can we help them um, kind of recenter and focus what they're trying to do, grow the company, drive operational excellence and growth and all of these things? How can we alleviate some of these pain points? This is why we got hired. Um, and, this is what we're looking for from not just our employees, if we're the owners, but also what we as employees want to be able to offer our owners. So nobody wants to feel like they're being micromanaged. Um, we don't want every single maintenance ticket, every single leasing decision have to be built on a culture of like lack of trust and accountability. So how can we overcome that and kind of take off that emotional weight of, so that the boss isn't just stressed, but it's, we're building in some organizational structure into that stagnation.
Yeah, and most team members, if if the business doesn't have a proper system in place, right, with
Mm-hmm.
some of the tools that we're going to talk about today, then there's no proper environment to grow and to be able to become a leader yourself if you're not the owner and you're in an operational role, right?
Right.
Um, so it looks like we have broker owners, maintenance coordinators.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I have a lot of people on here. Yeah, property
yeah.
managers, partners. I think, and on this slide, it's interesting that you put this slide up here because I hadn't seen this one before, but um, you know, again, I'm kind of referencing Lacconi, Patrick Lacconi, but he describes, I think, these villains that you kind of put on here as like two sides of that same coin, right? So when trust is low, communication is withheld, and when accountability is missing, ownership is avoided. So what I see is a lot, teams retreat into these silos. And the emotional intelligence theory kind of explains why, when people don't feel safe either expressing their emotion or what's frustrating them, they tend to shut down. They avoid conflict, they withdraw, and that's how they kind of protect themselves. So um, if you can kind of build in, somehow we can build in trust and show that teams that can operate at this higher level, it opens up a different climate and people communicate more openly. They tend to own their responsibilities more and they perform better under pressure. So we need to kind of give them some of these freedoms to be able to do that.
Yeah, completely agree. Conflict, and I was actually just texting one of my friends earlier about this today because my natural go-to is conflict avoidance. And that's something that I've always
Mhm.
worked on. And I've found that a lot of people avoid conflict.
They
Um,
do. But there is
luckily,
healthy conflict. I mean, there
yeah.
is there is conflict and then there is healthy conflict. You almost just can't get through a day or life without some sort of like objection to something. And we encounter it all the time in property management. There's always objections from owners, from vendors, even from our residents. So um, that objection is a sense, it is in theory a little bit of conflict. It's just how we've some of this stuff we know by rote, right? We've rehearsed it. We've encountered some of these same objections over and over, that even though it's conflict, we know how to overcome it.
Mhm. Yeah. Luckily, I have a business partner who really enjoys conflict.
That's probably good too.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
he
Like
does.
he's here, I'm here, and I'm getting here. I don't know if he's coming here. Well, let's look at some scenarios here on we have three common blindside scenarios, those zombie work orders that they should be gone, right? They should be taken care of and closed out, but then all of a
Hmm.
sudden that thing pops up again. I know you know this, Deb.
Yeah. No, I think zombie work orders, like these, I think you have ghost renewals and they're not just operational mishaps. Again, this is kind of this illustration of a dysfunction, right? Zombie work orders happen when accountability is absent and ghost renewals occur when teams lack clarity and commitment, or maybe don't understand the full process. Maybe we don't have it outlined or mapped out. We've not gone over the process as a team, as an individual. What's my role in this process? So I think surprise updates, like nobody likes to hear a question they don't know the answer to, right? Nobody wants to. I think that's the surprise that stems from that fear of conflict a little bit, and that you kind of talked about. When you're asked something and you don't know the answer, sometimes you feel a little like, am I out of my realm? Oftentimes we just need to pause long enough just to think through it methodically and then go, oh no, I actually really do know the answer. And it's okay to say, you know what, give me 5 minutes or give me a half an hour and I'll get back to you with the right answer. I do that all the time because at times I'm like, I know it, but I just need to make sure I'm going to tell you the right thing. So when you don't know something, it kind of leads into that frustration, this fear, this disengagement, which kind of causes people to break down. And so I think it's figuring out what are those cues that are happening around us that causes this to happen. So obviously in property management, these blind sides, like these things happening, can cost money. They can cost time. It can also erode client trust. But they can fundamentally be like an emotional failure of what's happening in their, with their property, their asset, what we're doing in management. So we have to make sure that we're okay to tell owners, hey, let me get back to you. I don't know the answer 100%. Let me just confirm with somebody and then make sure you follow through that commitment and get back to them.
Yeah. Yeah. These three, they affect a lot of key scorecard numbers in your company, right?
Yeah.
Your tenant retention, lease renewal rate, your essentially your retention, your lifetime value of your customer for your landlords. Um, really and the ghost renewals, right? It's all of a sudden, you might have a plan in place to where, you reach out to on renewals 120 days in advance or 90 days in advance, and you think that who's renewing and who's not, but then all of a sudden like one or two pop up, and it's a big surprise.
Yeah, but I think it's also okay to say, kind of pause. Like, let's say this happens and you're the owner of the company, you're very frustrated that this happened because it did, and it maybe it again cost you time or money or something. I think this is a great opportunity to kind of say, okay, we need to revisit this process either as a team as a whole, which then brings everybody kind of into this room to say, all right, here's the process and here's all of the roles. Let's say it's a property manager, a leasing agent, a maintenance coordinator, whomever, that all have a contribution to this process. And we're going to talk through the process and make sure each of these roles knows kind of where they come into it. We're mapping it out. Sometimes it's good to just, well, it is good. It's not sometimes, you should be reviewing these things every 6 months. I can't tell you how often I will work with a team, and if I'll work with them long enough, in 6 months, what we started 6 months ago has probably already changed based off of other things, other factors, new hires, a restructure of the org as you grow because of new doors. Like there's all of these things that play a factor into it. And so taking a moment to kind of revisit some of these basic things is these processes and procedures are great for everyone to kind of make sure I'm on the same page and I know what's going on. And that kind of builds in this accountability. It also gives everybody a little bit of a voice to say, hey, you know what? I hadn't been doing it that way, or I didn't realize that that was something that you wanted us to do. And it's a great way for owners and property managers or whomever to kind of share their expectations of what that process should look like along the way. What is the end goal of that process, whether it be a turnover, a lease renewal, a work order, map out how many days it should take, map out what those trigger events should be on when something should happen. And also how are we going to have oversight to this? Is it going to be through reporting? Is it going to be in a Lead Simple, an Apply, a Monday.com? Like where are we tracking all of these things? Are they checklists? So smaller companies may just work in Excel. Doesn't matter. The idea is to make sure everyone's held accountable, but at the same time, I don't want to micromanage people. I want to have them feel they have some autonomy, but we also can't afford to miss out on a renewal or a surprise. Oh, we had a move out and we forgot about it.
Hmm. Yeah, we were talking about lack of ownership before, and I'm wondering what's your best practice for ownership of individual processes?
Um, So I think you have to, well, there has to be something to kind of a check and balance, essentially. So I want to give people, again, the autonomy to know that this is their process, they own it. And, but at the same time, I want to be able to have oversight to check on it. And so to check in with them, how often are we kind of, are, I think a big thing is, are we even having team meetings? And what is the agenda of those team meetings? Are we having multiple meetings throughout the week, depending on our department? Are we a small company that we can get away with one really, good meeting? Like maybe it's a 90-minute meeting every Tuesday, and we go over every facet of the business, meaning everything from new business coming in to leasing applications that are still outstanding, kind of going through that methodically, that life cycle of property management and covering all aspects of it. If you're a larger company, you may want to have multiple meetings where you have a leasing meeting, you have a move in and move out meeting, a turnover meeting. So it's making sure everybody's kind of responsible, and I'm letting them be responsible, and I'm holding them accountable to that. But I'm still in charge of kind of overall what's going on.
Hmm. Yeah, and yeah, meetings is a big topic, right? Because
I know.
I'm
Yeah.
curious. When I first started understanding the concepts of having structured meetings, it was foreign to me. But what I learned, I just thought it was going to be more meetings. But what I learned is that it eliminates a lot of unnecessary meetings and drive-by communication, and it provides
Yeah.
intentionality and a framework. But to your point, your meeting structure, just like your processes, evolve as you grow as a company. So you might need different types of meetings, or more or less, depending on how you're growing.
Yeah. I hear a lot from clients who are like, well, we communicate a lot. Like they feel like they communicate a lot because they're talking every single day. Well, I talk to my property managers every day. So why do I have to have a whole separate meeting? The idea of a meeting is to get other people that somehow touch that process or integrated somewhere into that process involved. So we know that maintenance does touch property management, right? You may not have your property manager doing your move out turnovers. Maybe you have just maintenance doing that. But how important is it for the property manager to know what's going on and how long the turnover is taking? Because I need to get it back onto the market. Like there's so many there's a lot of cooks in that kitchen, and we just need to make sure everybody's, in the prep line as they should be. So having these, I like what you said, these drive-by conversations, those are great for everyday things, like just really catch up stuff that might happen in the moment. But the problem is some of that can get filed and forgotten pretty quickly. So again, kind of having these intentional meetings, holding people accountable and having a purpose for, okay, this is, and almost assigning things with deadlines to get done so that the next meeting you can kind of follow up and make sure it got checked off and got done. That's just everyone holding everyone else kind of accountable. We're all in our own lane, but we're also helping each other in, crossing over.
Mhm. Let's jump to the symptoms.
I love this.
Dr. Deb likes to diagnose, and that's
I
our
do.
philosophy too. We when we have a discovery call with prospects, we ask a lot of questions, because the symptom that we're experiencing we have to dive in. It's like if you go to the doctor and, your knee's
Mhm.
hurting. Well, why is your knee hurting, right?
Because you're
So
exercising, because you're
yeah,
running. Stop running.
yeah.
Yeah, again, I think, again, I'm going to reference Leoconi. He teaches that symptoms are like missed deadlines, right? That's so symptoms, I would say, like deadlines, are not the dysfunction. I think the root cause of it is like the absence of clarity or trust or the avoidance of accountability. Like it's digging in and finding out what's really going on. So a lot of clients will tell me, well, I'm not growing. I really want to grow, or I'm not making enough money. My team tells me that they're overwhelmed. We're getting a lot of emails again. So it's kind of digging in, going, well, who's emailing you? Well, owners are. Well, why are owners emailing you? Do they not understand the process? Like, have we not? So it's kind of going backwards, obviously, and just figuring out where was the breakdown in communication. Did we not share with our owners exactly how the application process works? Because are expectations met? Do they know what our expectations are as a company and what we're going to be doing for them, and vice versa? Do we understand what the expectation of the owner is? Are they expecting us to call them every single week and tell them how many showings we had and how many possible applications came in, and then give them the bad news that, hey, we had 5 applications, but none of them panned out? Like, where's that level of, and everybody's business is different. I'm not saying that that's wrong, because some people want to have that very hands-on experience and really focus on that, and that's okay. But we have to make sure that we've set those expectations in the very beginning so that you can distinguish between the symptom and the cause.
Mhm. Yeah, and and communication uh based on the expectations that we set as business owners with our team, right? It's as a team member, does your team know what's expected of them? What does success look like? Do they have KPIs in place? Like, is their
Mhm.
role clearly defined? Do they know what to do in certain situations? Because if those things are not clearly laid out, then that's a recipe for failure. um, I've said this since I started therapy years ago. Communication is the foundation of any successful relationship, whether it's your spouse or your business partner or your team member, or the person you meet down the street. And we communicate in different ways, right? I mean, that's not the point of this slide, but we communicate not just with what we say, but with what we don't say, or
And
with
how we act.
how we act. Yeah, if we're not showing up for our team, what is that
Mhm.
communicating to them?
Or
You
when
know?
you kind of, this goes a little bit back to the whole conflict thing. Sometimes when we push things off because we have fear or we avoid, um, it can send one of two messages to your team. Either it's like silent acceptance that this is okay behavior, or it's the other reverse of it, saying, well, I guess I have to handle it all. And that stressor put on that team member, it puts him out of commission, essentially. I met with somebody, ironically, this is so interesting. I met with somebody yesterday. Part of my process when I work with a new company is I'll interview some of their key team members. And this happens to be a very unique company in that it's an owner that owns he owns a bunch of multifamily buildings, all from California to Arizona. And he kind of built his own property management company really internally. And his number two, who I'm kind of doesn't really have a title, it's just his number two, is running around like a madman between all, like, he's flying back and forth to California, he's driving everywhere around Arizona, and he's a young guy. Like, I think he's in his early 30s. And he literally told me yesterday, he goes, I have literally been diagnosed with high blood pressure. Because I cannot take on anymore. And the owner is just a great entrepreneur, right? He has multiple different businesses. He has storage units, he has multifamily, he has a couple other things. And this guy is kind of in charge of it all. And he is literally running himself ragged. And it's part of the process is there's just no organizational structure. So there's no it's hard to hold anybody accountable to anything. He's the one kind of responsible for everything, but nothing is outlined. Like, do we have even, when you have to hire somebody new, what is that, who's responsible for training and what are the processes and who's training them on software, on the, all of this. And it's kind of falling to him and one other guy. And they're so devoted to the owner's a great guy. He's not malicious in his intent at all. He just doesn't know how to quite lead the team in a way that is methodical and has, these buckets of responsibilities. And the problem is some people don't know, again, he's kind of throwing it on this guy. He as well doesn't he's running around with this, like the Tasmanian devil. He can't stop long enough to think through and kind of distinguish, again, between the symptoms and the causes of what's going on. And so leaders that not just miss like deadlines or things like that, but employees that are disengaged or anxious or have, unclear expectations also fail the company in so many different ways, because we haven't taken the time to like just stop, pause, and go, okay, this is my company. I have to kind of help right, put this in a right order and really either delegate out very specific responsibilities to key people, or I have to own this and make sure it's moving in the right direction.
Hmm. Yeah, it's easy to be a hands-off business owner and just say to our number two, go
Yeah.
ahead, knock your socks off, right? Go do all the things. Well, fact is, like, they probably don't know what are all the things and in what order should those things be done,
It
right?
always though surprises me, Jay, when you have such a hands-off owner, yet they're the owner and they own the company and they are allowing, they're seeing this happen. They're frustrated with the results, but they're not doing anything to change those results. They're allowing this behavior to happen or these things to happen. Some of it's just because it's also gotten out of their control. They don't even know what's going on in the company because so and so is doing that. And they can't get me or anybody else the information of what I need. Like if I need a good P&L, if I can't get it, so I can actually just look at where things are, what's bleeding in the company or where there's some opportunities, that's also a problem.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think a lot of people get stuck because they don't know what to do,
Yeah,
like they
it's
just
hard.
want.
It's hard to
It
unwind,
is.
right? It's very hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to uh, remove somebody from their post, right? I gave them this role and they might be failing at it, but I can't take that away because if I do, what will that person might feel devalued or and then quit. And then, oh my gosh, if they quit, then what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. What's the lesser of two evils at this point?
And I also hear, well, I just don't want to put another thing on this person's plate because it won't be fair
Mhm.
to them. But let's consider a different scenario. What if that person on your team is not fulfilled in exactly what they're doing? What if they feel like they're wasting time doing certain things that are not within their superpower? What if they're doing things inefficiently that they think that they could improve? What if they were passionate about the thing that you were going to give them? You don't know if you don't have the communication. And if you have communication and you're working within someone's superpower, they're going to be more likely to want to own the outcome
Right.
of that
So
task.
here's kind of a little bit of a light bulb moment as you were talking about that. I think an emotionally intelligent leader, someone who can notice that, okay, deadlines are not just that deadlines are being missed, but that employees are disengaged or like I think I said earlier, anxious or kind of unclear on expectations. I think that is somebody who then understands emotions as diagnostic tools. Like they solve the root problems, not just those surface errors. They can see what's happening because it's this, they have this emotional intelligence to kind of be in touch with their surroundings essentially and can discern what's really happening. People are overwhelmed, overstressed, overworked. I'm asking them to do this, but is that disrupting the current role, and do they have the time? And oftentimes the employees might say, hey, I'll take it on, I'll do it, but we don't really see the bigger picture. If they do it, are other things going to fall short of
I
that?
think I think what gets the average business owner that doesn't necessarily have because not everybody has a high level of emotional intelligence,
Right.
but the way to solve for that is by asking a lot of questions.
Hmm.
If you ask a lot of open-ended questions in your weekly one-on-ones with your team, or really in any situation, you're going to be able to diagnose better. Just like if you go to the doctor, right? They're going to ask you a bunch, hopefully they ask you a bunch of questions, and really try to get down to the root cause, which isn't always a root cause of a problem that's related to a process, but it might be the driving factor that that human being, right? What might be limiting that person from being the person who you hired, right?
Hmm.
What happened to them? Well, what happened to them could be the culture that they're in, or it could be the role that they're in. So asking yourself those questions as the business owner really helps you own the outcome.
Right. Agreed.
Yeah. Here's a real good example, right? Nice and simple. Late rent reminders don't go out. That's a symptom, right? Well, is because there's no system in place or owner of the task, right? We
Right.
have, I'm not sure if you use, we call it a responsibilities matrix, which lists out everything that needs to get done in the property management company, and it has a checkbox near the role of the person. Do you use those as well, Deb?
Yeah, so we build out something very similar. We'll build out an SOP for each process, and it tells we will do it kind of like line by line by task essentially, and who's responsible for it. And then essentially we're just mapping it out, but it's the same thing. That I can literally just go into this spreadsheet and know exactly what the steps are, the procedures are, and then who owns all of that.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think,
Clarity.
yeah, clarity. So this dependency trap, I think dependency is a classic dysfunction, right? So lack of commitment mean no one moves until like unless the leader directs them to move, right? Growth stalls because everything must run through, your manager. So it's uh, dependency can be you have to be very careful with that. And this kind of goes back to the whole thing with, who owns what in the process and where that autonomy is, and who can do what. Uh, yeah, I also, you say, so why are you the leader wearing all the hats? I look at this as like the overcompensation, right? So I'm going to just do it because I can do it faster. Or, oh, I just don't have time to explain, so I'll just do it. So again, this is that classic dysfunction of it's no one's moving. My boss is just going to do it anyway, so I'm just not even going to try to figure it
Mhm.
out. So leaders who they unconsciously create this dependency because of whether it's their anxiety or some control, it drives that micromanagement and they over involved and they pretty much become this emotional bottleneck of what's going on in the company.
I think
I
of,
would, huh?
I was going to say, I think of enablement versus empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you have, I was talking to somebody the other day, it might be somebody that I know really well that had their son living with them until they were 35 years old. And
No.
yeah, because, and I'm like, you're enabling that person to
Mm-hmm.
be dependent upon you and this situation because they're
Mm-hmm.
comfortable. And what you're telling that person is that this is okay. I will handle these situations for you. And that's what happens when your team comes to you and, they keep asking you the same question, right? Well, if you're answering it for them and solving the problem for them instead of asking them a question back, then you're enabling them. But if you ask them a good question, then you'll give them the empowerment that they need.
I call it the sacrifice syndrome, right? Leaders sacrifice autonomy for control at the cost of scale.
Mm,
So, I mean,
yeah.
that's again, I'm calling it this overcompensation. I see owners answering, they have to answer every phone call. Like you said, they have to answer every email. They have to kind of approve every single repair because somehow it's not, it's in in some way, they don't trust their team to do it. They do, but they don't. They say they do, but they really don't. So it's not just really an efficiency issue. It's really kind of this emotional regulation issue at the top.
Yeah. Well, like we're teaching our team, don't think, just ask.
Hmm.
And we need to move from task doers, right? And if you're, in operations here and not a business owner, and you feel like you're just doing tasks and checking the
Hmm.
boxes, but you feel like you want to operate in a bigger capacity, talk to your leader or your owner, right? Talk to your direct report, bring that up to them, right? And have that open conversation.
Part of it is I think they have to, again, if you are in the operations, help your leaders see that you can take on more and do more. Help them. It's sometimes they just have to see that they can trust you. A lot of times they just can't figure that out for themselves, the leaders, right? They don't know how to overcome their own anxieties or uh, failures at that, because either they've been burned in the past, this is their baby, this is their company, if something happens, I have to answer to it or pay for it, and that can be very stressful for an owner. So we are very reliant on our team, but we have to make sure our team also is bought into all of it.
Mm. Yeah, we create patterns by being the go-to. I think back when I was when I was a kid, I was on the Atlantic City boardwalk, and there I fed a pigeon a peanut. I mean, it must peanut popcorn, whatever the hell it was, and it was one pigeon, right? And then all of a sudden, because I fed that one pigeon, I had like 200 pigeons that were following me down the boardwalk trying to eat my popcorn. And it's that compounding effect where, if we set the tone, it's just going to be reality.
Right.
Yeah.
I like it. Good analogy.
Yeah. Scalability you were
Yeah.
talking about before, Deb, right?
Yeah.
Everything's, it stalls if everything has to run through you.
Exactly. It's that, like I said, that sacrifice syndrome. If you sacrifice autonomy for control, it's at the cost of scale.
Yeah. And tribal knowledge. This is something that we use a lot. Um,
Hmm.
if you don't have if you don't have your policies, your SOPs, if you don't have the core functions documented, then all of those answers just lie in your head, right? We've always done it this way. Oh,
Exactly.
you were taking a breath. I thought you were
I
saying
was,
something.
I was coughing. Sorry.
No, it's
Yes,
okay.
sorry. Yes, I
Yeah.
think this, like you said, this is when knowledge stays in someone's head. Dysfunction multiplies when that happens, by the way. So I would call that this is an accountability and like a clarity gap, essentially, because I can't read your mind, and we need to somehow eloquently make sure that everybody understands. I think the easier way, this is how I explain it and tell people to do it. Hold on, I'm going to cough again. Is that it's really
The suspense is killing me
I
now.
know, sorry. It's it's setting expectations. Sometimes it's hard to say for me to say, "Hey, I just need you to get this information out of your head and tell it to someone." But if you kind of change the verbiage and say, "What are your expectations?" It's the same thing you would ask an owner, right? When an owner hires you to manage their property, what are you hoping to get out of this relationship, this professional relationship of us managing your property? This is where you learn these owners' expectations. Well, I expect you to call me every time you get an application and you have somebody moving in. Does that meet the company's expectations? But does the same thing applies? What are the expectations of a turnover, of
What
a
what
work
I
order?
what I find though, the problem that most people have, you run into this as well, is that, in order to get that tribal knowledge out of your head, you have to have the time or you have to know where to start. That's why, one of the first things we work on is capacity. How do we create more capacity for the business owner so that you can chunk out the time in order to do this? Or have a system in place when you onboard a new team member or any of your current team members, have them document the way that they do
Yeah.
business, right?
Because
Have them.
ambiguity, I always say that word wrong, um, breeds anxiety though, right? So when you
Yeah.
don't know what's going on, that's what makes people feel anxious. So again, to your point, however you figure out how to do it, whether you use a tool like Scribe or there's a whole bunch of them out there, but Loom and sit in front of your computer and just map it out. But if you can create clear documentation, you can reduce stress and you increase trust.
Mhm. Yeah, we talked about some of this already, but let's start turning the corner here of clearly defining like what does empowerment look like and what are the things that you need to do to change
Mhm.
this, you
I
know.
think, yeah, turning the corner means moving from leader as a bottleneck to team as owner, right? So you're moving from one to another and helping what that empowerment looks like. Like you said, we talked about it, but I can't stress enough that trust and accountability have to be reestablished. And how do you build that? So you know, we kind of talked about some of the tools, like how do we build empowerment? We have to connect with our team, maybe starting with like the why and modeling that trust, like why do we do it this way, and helping them understand if you're the business leader, why you want it that way. Why is it important to you to have it done this exact way when you're thinking, gosh, if they had just done it this way? But hopefully you can have some open communication over time, or maybe you can introduce a more streamlined way of doing something. But in the beginning, it may be that we just accommodate our owners if to earn their trust that we can do the job.
Yeah, and it's okay, talking, coaching business owners, I let them know, like, it's okay, let your team know that it's okay to make mistakes. They need to make mistakes. It's like having a 2-year-old, you put them in the middle of a room with white walls and a can of red paint. Make a mess, right? Like, it's okay. And when someone does make a mistake, as long as it's not a regularly occurring one, then, let them know, look, you're supported. What did you learn from it? And let's not make that mistake again.
Right.
Yeah.
I no, agree. But I think sometimes that can, yes, own up to it. That's really important. But I, I, th- I think it goes back to kind of like, uh, just building on, again, kind of just building this trust through communication and helping both parties kind of feel comfortable with what makes operational sense.
Yeah, of course, right? I mean, you have two different things here. Like, one of them is documenting the way that you do business, and that's the way that you need to do business, right? SOPs
Hmm.
exist for a reason. At the
Right.
same time, there's decisions that need to be made that require strategic or critical thinking,
Right.
and people are not always going to make the right decision. So if you make the wrong decision, it's okay. Just make a decision.
Well, and I think also teaching somebody how to like feel like how would I say it? Critical thinking skills are kind of hard to kind of just innately have. So you have to maybe help them figure out what that is. So there's kind of this 1-3-1 method, right? Bring me one problem, think of 3 solutions, and let's have one recommendation. So maybe walk away with the 1-3-1 method. And that encourages people to think. So they may come with 3 solutions and they might not be the right solutions, but it's okay. It's showing me that they're thinking through the situation. So you brought me the problem. I want you to think through it. I don't want to be the problem solver. I don't want to be the bottleneck. And that will also show me that you're wanting to grow within your role. So again, 1-3-1, one problem, three solutions, and then in the end, it's one recommendation that we mutually agree upon.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that
And
will regulate that any frustration and to help think critically and present solutions calmly rather than escalate all of these things.
yeah, thinking bigger. And you mentioned something about Simon Sinek when we were preparing for this,
Yeah.
and having to buy into the why. Could you talk about
Yes,
that?
I love the why. So I always look at it. Well, I kind of even go beyond that. I always call it the who, what, when, where, why is what I call it. But the why is a big part of it. But so are the other, other ones as well. But why will tell me why are we doing it this way? And owners want to know the same thing, right? So owners want to know how we do something, but why we're doing it this way. And we're the experts, right? So we can say, well, it's, legislatively we have to, or this is a regulation, or this just, we do it this way because. So it's the same thing. It's starting with that why. Why are we doing it? Does it make sense in the process? And then that comes into the who, what, when, where part of it as well.
Yeah.
Who's
Yeah.
touching it? Where are we like where in the life cycle are we doing it? How are we doing it? That's going to be critical. What tech tools or what other steps are we doing to do it, and when do we do it in the process? So that's all really critical on kind of building out when you're thinking through processes, procedures, even policies that come from those. That plays into it as well. So when your team understands why, like this is our vision, what we're, the goal that we're going to reach to, what is important to you and why is it, that changes some of their attitude and their buy-in to all of it.
Yeah, and how does their role, what they specifically do, how does that tie into the vision for the company and where you're going? And I feel segue in here to weekly one-on-ones up
Mm-hmm.
until probably about a year ago, um, didn't really love one-on-ones. Now I feel that they are the most important thing in the business. It's specific, carved out 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, everybody can do it differently, but we do it and teach it in 30 minutes, same time, one team member every week. And in that one on one, you're able to ask questions, see what's going well, what's not going well, right? Tell me a little, you can talk a little bit about personal, right? But you can also talk about professional development. We have one of our core values is learn fast. And we want us and our team to be able to grow and learn from certain things, right? Using new technologies. So using AI, how are you using AI to level up? What are you passionate about, right? You're able to also identify leaders, not just have people doing tasks, but this is another way to
Yeah.
shift people from task doing to problem solving.
Yeah. One-on-ones really bridge that whole thing between trust and accountability. They tell your employees, like, I see you, I hear you, I expect you to own your own outcomes. But also, I think to your point, leaders who do this, who check in weekly, are practicing this emotional perception and regulation, and they're spotting these roadblocks before, and early, and able to address any problems or concerns before they kind of like fester, right? So I think that's important as well. But I hear it a lot. I don't have time for this. That's one more thing I have to put on my plate. I just don't have time. You would have time if your team left. So meaning
Mhm.
what are you going to prioritize? Because if you don't put that one thing in place, and if you have a very large team, this is where obviously you delegate. Your managers might do the one-on-ones. I mean, and then you have the one-on-ones with the manager. I'm not saying you have to meet with all 30 people,
Yeah.
but it there's definitely this hierarchy of how it has to happen, because I also think it's really important to kind of develop our team, for career advancement and things like that, right? We want to encourage them. This is not just a job. This is a career. I'd love for you. I value you. You're important to this team, to this company. And so it sets that time aside. I have a client that does this very religiously. She's very, very good at it. She makes it a priority, even though she's very busy. But by doing that, her team just goes that extra mile for her all the time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm at the point now where, my team wants to grow. They want me to push them. They're telling me,
Mhm.
Jay, be more direct with me. What can I do next? What can I do
Yeah.
better? And I'm like, huge shift from 12 months ago. And and I'm seeing the same thing for our clients as we have them lean in. We talked about the 131, right? So
Yeah.
um, this is a great tool to have in your tool belt. And then documenting SOPs, we talked about some different ways to document SOPs. You can use tool. You don't have to be an expert in SOP documentation, right? I mean, like there's tools out there that
Oh, there
do
are.
this.
There's some great AI tools out there.
Yeah.
There's one that through Google, I can't even think of the name. I think it's called Notebook. I'm not really,
Yeah,
I think is
Notebook,
that what it's called?
Notebook LM, but that won't solve that problem
Okay,
the most
okay. But
effectively. No,
Scribe does. But Scribe and
Scribe,
Loom, yep,
Loom AI,
yep.
Guide, GUI, DDE. Those are great. And
Hmm.
encourage your team and start it from
Yes.
onboarding. You have a new team member that you're onboarding, right? And if you don't have certain SOPs in place, have them do it. We have every remote team member that we place now, if for whoever's on here that doesn't know that we do direct hire remote team member placement, so we help you hire VAs in your company. um, every remote team member that we place now is AI certified. They go through an AI certification
That's
course
great.
that I developed and has some of these basic functionality, right? Some of the basic tools and some of the things that you just need to know. You don't have to be an expert. You just have to know what's going to help you be more efficient, because documenting SOPs can seem so overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be, especially when you have a team that is empowered and can work autonomously. They'll start doing it for you.
Yeah, agreed.
Now,
Accountability chart. I love this.
exactly. Who and this is I cut off the left and the right side kind of just to keep the meat and the potatoes here, but people have to know who reports to whom, like who do I
Hmm.
go to with a problem? You don't go to the visionary, right? If you're the leasing specialist, you go to your pod leader.
But if
And
you're a small
your
company, you might be the visionary and the integrator and the manager all in one until you
Yeah.
grow. But hopefully you're developing a team that they can grow with you. That would be ideal. They learn everything that's in your head. They help you document it. We tend to we seek out, hopefully, the goal is to seek out people who can do things better than we can in areas that we are weak in or that aren't our strongest trait.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and if you don't have anyone working for you yet, one of the things that we tell people is write down all of the things that you're either not good at or are not worth your time or that you don't like doing. And that's somebody's job, right? That's how
Hmm.
you create your first job description. We
Yeah.
talked about a lot of great things today when it comes to communication, ownership, accountability, how to solve problems, how to build strategic thinkers. What else would we talk about, Deb?
Um, well, I think communication is key, right? So learning how to communicate, and
Mhm.
if we feel that we're not good communicators, how do we start? And I think it starts with asking your team, how can I help me help you, right? How can I help you better? And what would that look like? And helping them elevate themselves in their role.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, in order to stop being blindsided, we talked about a lot of those things today.
Mhm.
Next step is how to lead a team that owns the outcome. Next week, I'm going to be doing a workshop. So, there's going to be a hands on workshop where you'll be able to walk away with a plan on how to have a team how to lead a team that owns the outcome. At Better Who, we build self-managing teams, and this is just what we do. So we condensed this program down to an hour. It's going to be a workshop. Scan the QR code and register. We are right up to time right now, and I have something. I have an AI mastermind that I'm popping into to introduce Betty Who, our AI coach
Love
that
it.
we're announcing.
All
So
right.
super excited about that. Thank you, Deb, so much.
Thank
Ton
you.
of
Appreciate
value.
it.
Thank you guys for being here. Until next time, we'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.